So I'm in Boston. I love saying it like that, Boston. And this is a weird little movie theater called Apple Cinemas, where I'm going to check out It Chapter 2 now. So I'm really anticipating this. I loved part 1, and I'm really expecting it to be badass. So yeah, this is the Boston Apple Cinema. Can't wait to see it. Aww. That was real sweet. I totally got the feels at the end. That was really, really cute. Now let's review this properly. Well, you see me here in these Derry-esque like surroundings on the East Coast. This was very fitting. I gotta say, like, before I say anything at all about this, is that I think we really have a solid adaptation of Stephen King's It now. And not like the kind of campy, wacky little Tim Curry fun that the 90s originally used to be. I know some people really still say that that's like the badass one, but come on. You can't really compare from the acting and from how tame a TV mini-series adaptation to the book is compared to this remake. It's just like so much more superior on every level. I can't even like describe that. I'm not even gonna go there. Yeah, buying some booze while reviewing. But I wanted to mention, it's a solid package, that's for sure. Like, the casting, you couldn't have done a better job with the casting than they already did. You like literally, without having any flashbacks, identify which kid was which adult the second you saw them. Like, the acting and the casting was beautifully done and beautifully executed, that was for sure. Oh my fucking god. Bill Skarsgård definitely killed it as Pennywise, but no, that was what we were all expecting. Like, that performance never had even a shred of doubt in the first one. Like, absolutely convincing. But here's the thing where it generally gets tricky. Yeah, the tricky thing about it is that part 2 of the source material has more flaws than part 1, and that is like something where the original adaptation failed miserably, because it wasn't just the flaws from the source material that fucked it up. We also had some really shitty casting, some really shitty acting, and some really, really, really corny, toned down versions of the original, and that kind of like put part 2 of the original 90s adaptation right to the grave. That was like its nail in the coffin. And here the part 2 actually really like did well, but here's my problem with the original source material, and that is why no adaptation can like really save it. See, the thing is, with part 2, you have this build-up. You have to get all the adults to come back to Derry, and that already takes up like 1/3 of the movie. So generally, like, when you have this build-up, you want your scares to be solid. You want your scares to be badass. You want to amp them up. You want to make them scarier than everything you had in part 1. If you're going to go for that build-up. And this is where, like, in the book it actually works. It works because you also, like, get to have these different perspectives. There's a chapter, for example, written through the perspective of Pennywise personally, and I was expecting something like that. A bit more to know about Pennywise, but I don't want to get, like, off topic too much. The thing is, where they were kind of, like, I was expecting them to amp up the scares, make them a little bit more brutal, make them look a little bit more drastic and scary generally. They just kind of just amped up the CGI. And that is, like, I think my biggest issue with part 2. That it was just like your straight up CGI fest at some point. I mean, that fucking naked old lady chasing down Jessica Chastain's character. Beverly, yeah, her name's Beverly. That was fucking ridiculous. Look at The Shining. Look at, like, Dr. Sleep. Those are CGI effects that actually worked. These seemed a bit too comical for me, I gotta admit. But that's also the thing, and I understand why a lot of people have issues with part 2 here, simply because of this comical CGI thing going on. But the thing is, for me, like, a lot of people expect it to be like this badass, scary ass, genuinely scary movie, which I never saw it to be. Like, even while I was reading the book, it for me always seemed to be like this horror fairy tale, and that is what I expected of this new adaptation. That is exactly what I got. So I am actually like totally happy. This is like a movie that, like the two movies, I see them as one movie, did what they set out to do. A beautiful little horse fairy tale about a bunch of outcast kids. And I like that. I like that a lot. And I kind of said the exact same thing about part 1 after I saw it. So I'm going to say the exact same thing about part 2 after I saw it. If you are expecting a genuinely scary film, this is not it. Go watch Martyrs. Go watch Inside, the original versions, mind you. Or High Tension. Those are fucking scary films, but don't go watch Stephen King's It. It's a horror fairy tale. Nothing more, nothing less. A lot of people have complained, and I have to admit that they aren't really necessarily wrong when they say that the movie generally feels very long with its 2 hour and 45 minute runtime. And the fact that that's the case is that the middle is like kind of too constructed. It's really like each character has their little trip to memory lane and then is encountered with their own personal fear. So in the middle of the movie, you have kind of like about 45 minutes, a straight up anthology of your character's fears just presented right at you. And that feels a bit stretched out, and it does feel a bit too long. But it does work. It wasn't really much different in the book to begin with anyway. And I don't know. I'm kind of complaining too much about a movie that I actually really enjoyed. So I'm going to leave it at that. Both It adaptations from 2017 and 2019 are very solid, good works. And don't believe what all the bastards say who are expecting something truly, genuinely scary, because mainstream horror movies just are not. And enjoy this little horror fairy tale because it really ain't bad at all.